What does it take to develop easy keeping cattle? We're going to talk with Wineglass Ranch cow boss TJ Ellicott today about just that.
The spreadsheets have kind of told us there's a real correlation between if we challenge them hard, then they're going to breed up real great this second calver. So there's definite value in that, and luckily we got a lot of data that shows challenging them is a good, fertile critter, which is what we're after. So they don't get a whole lot of supplement, like I said, just ahead of storms, and otherwise they're grazing 365. We've pushed it. 2022 was a dry summer and a brutal winter, especially locally, and there's maybe just a 5 mile radius there where we got some ice, and I had to go load up Jeff and make sure we weren't gonna head for a train wreck. And surprisingly, we just helped them with cake, and they kind of got through it. And it was a pretty rough winter, just being covered up, foot of snow, and a lot of that, was ice. And most of the cows in the county either on a ration or taken back home, and we're about the only ones out feeding. I was a little nervous for a while, but it was surprising what those cows can do. And we really believe in letting those cows be a cow, and with a little supplement, they can rough it.
All that and more on this episode 403 of the Working Cows podcast, brought to you by Ranch Right and the Wineglass Ranch.
Welcome to the podcast that gives producers a platform to discuss and share paradigm-challenging practices. Practices that have increased the effectiveness of their operation and the joy that their families have received from this lifestyle.
Howdy, everybody. It's Clay Connery, host of the Working Cows podcast, recorded exclusively in the Understanding Ag Studios. Very excited to be joined today by TJ Ellicott, cow boss at Wineglass Ranch. We're going to talk with TJ today about developing the easy keeping genetics that they have. We're going to talk to him about heifer development, about the bull battery, and how they've gone to raising the majority of those bulls there at Wineglass Ranch and the difference that makes, as well as managing the mature cow herd and just what these cows are capable of from a perspective of being working cows. So kind of right in our wheelhouse here at the Working Cows podcast. Very excited for this conversation. And we will share that conversation with TJ with you after a word from our sponsor today, Ranch Right. New year, new goals. Let Ranch Right help you accomplish those goals by using your financials as a compass to build a business that both works for you and serves you. This new year is the perfect time to start off on the right foot, and Ranch Right is it. If you are ready to have a business that works for you versus you having to constantly work for it, then visit ranchrightllc.com. Ranch Right is here to help you take your financials and use them as a compass to build a business that is strong, long-lasting, and ready to tackle the new year. Visit www.ranchrightllc.com. Your goals start now. TJ, thanks for joining me today on the Working Cows podcast.
Hey, my pleasure, Clay. Good to be here.
Yeah, I wanted to talk to you about the Wineglass Easy Keepers and kind of how you guys have gone about developing them, some of your goals and what you're hoping to accomplish with that herd of females there. And they will be for sale in late March of 2025. So you can kind of keep your eyes on wineglassranchinc.com if you're interested. And these will be just what the name says, easy keeping genetics, kind of developed to be low input and thrive in a grass-based systems. First of all, is that an accurate summary of kind of some of what you guys are hoping to do with those females?
That's exactly right. The sale will be, the reason for the sale is Jeff. I think he turned 71 this year. He'll be retiring, and Logan will be, kind of buying in some of the inventory. So that's the kind of reason by the sale. And pretty much the heart of the cow herd, all the Jay at the Ogallala and sale barn has already done the sort on them, and they're on corn stalks, and they'll be all the good ones right there for sale. So
yeah, this is the famous Ogallala sort. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's right. Anything that was goofy if something had a little horns or skirts or anything like that, or gimpy. They're already sorted off, and of course we'll do more of that as we get them to Oglala. So yeah,
sure. So kind of premium center cut of these, or high end cut even of these girls that are coming to town. And yeah, let's talk about the kind of the philosophy of the development process, because I think it's fairly unique as far as home raised bulls even on these kind of home raised cows and kind of what you guys have been shooting for. So what is the kind of the context of the ranch that I think is probably more than anything what is going to determine what is going to thrive in your environment, right?
you bet. Yep. And yeah. So the context for a ranch is we're about 18,000 acres of sandhills grass here, southwest Nebraska, and we also got 4,500 acres of farm ground that in our crop rotation, every single crop gets grazed either before, during, or after. These cows are a big part of what we do, and it's our number one tool of capturing production and profit. So that's kind of what we do is raise cows and walk off the pounds off the ranch via cattle. So that's kind of what we do, which requires a cow that's adapted to our environment. And if she's adapted, we don't need to put near as much into her. We let them do the work, which makes our job easier. Yep.
Working cows. That's what we like to have, right?
There it is. That's right. That's right.
Yeah, and I think that the first time I talked to Logan, the title of the episode was "That Won't Work Here," and so you guys are always kind of have been willing to try and do unconventional things. So even the crop ground, a lot of that's going to get grazed at some point, right?
Yeah, that's right. Yep. And really, a big part of most years what we do is walking off, 1,000-pound steers and on the July sale with the crop ground, and that's kind of a way we like, getting those last pounds on and getting them on a truck, and that's a big part of what we do. So that's it's all integrated. That's for sure.
Yep. And these females, they're going to be the kind that have been the goal, right? Every year's graze 365, kind of what you guys are shooting for.
That's right. That's right. Yep. And I'll never say never or always, but the cows graze 365. Of course we'll do a little bit of supplementing here and there, basically just on a head of storms and a touch of breeding, kind of depending on context of everything. But yeah, the cows do the work. That's and it's important that we have cows that work for us, not the other way around, and that's very important. So,
and kind of the way I've been thinking about this opportunity that is presented by these cows being for sale there towards the end of March 2025 is I think it's an opportunity for a young producer that wants to get started with the right kind of cows. Because honestly, cows that are going to ring the bell when it comes to the rail, I think they kind of would break most producers from the perspective of the grass side of that. If you're a cow-calf producer, those cows that are going to succeed on the rail from a carcass merits perspective and yield and all those things that really end up determining those prices, I think those cows are really hard to succeed with in a grass-based system. Would you agree with that?
Absolutely. The strongest correlation to profit in our eyes, and I think a lot of, Dallas Mountain, a lot of the Ranch for Profit guys is how much feed basically you don't feed. It's carrying capacity and stocking rate are very important. And these cows, how we raise them, they're out hustling, and and cow size, that's also important. Keeping low milk, cows that don't, are low maintenance, low milk, and smaller in size. I mean, that's an unfair advantage we have. A competitive advantage is if we can run, 20% more, that's real value and kind of hidden value in a lot of people's eyes. But yeah, these are definitely cows that work for us. Yep.
Yep. Yeah, I mean, if you can run 20% more, that's every 5 years you get a whole nother calf crop.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. And I ran numbers before, even if you give, so and we take weights, and that's the great thing about Logan is he's an accountant and he's got a spreadsheet for everything. But, we try to get every fall, we get weights on, our cows and our running age cows. They're somewhere between, on average, 1,150 and, 1,200 pounds. They're pretty close to 1,200, and they're truly that. Um, but the numbers I run, you give an extra 2 acres to a 1,500-pound cow, and that's at least 300 calves we don't have to sell on the ranch, and probably a lot higher than that. And that's a lot of real profit right there. And they're
Yeah,
worth more per pound as well. So
right. I was going to say, in a year like this, that's a big deal.
it's a big deal. That's a big deal. Yes.
So yeah, let's talk about the cow themselves and kind of the process of developing them. What maybe we'll just start with from birth. When are you calving? How long are they on the cow? What's the weaning process like? Some of those things.
Yep. Yeah. And we like to lean on, and a lot of this comes from Burke. Burke, he came here right before I got started here, and I was a Burke fan before I got hooked up with Logan. So very similar philosophy. And but and I wish I could take credit for this, but the best thing he came in and said to start with is get those heifer calves bred in a short window, and kind of lean on mostly two things: lean on nature, shoot for the right calving window, and heterosis to help us out. To start from square one, our cows calve start in the middle of April, and they'll go about 50 days calving window. Leave the calves on the cows till about Halloween is about when we wean, and from there the cows will go to stocks, and that's the only time our mature cows go through the chute is preg checking time in the fall. So our heifer calves, it's different every year. Where we got feed is where they're going. Most times we like to keep them close to headquarters, and as many days they can be out grazing is the best. Sometimes it doesn't work out that way. We go to some corn stalks and have to kind of feed them, just kind of a ration with the corn stalks for, with a neighbor. So, but we'll bring them back home, and once in the spring, and from there we kind of lean on Burke's breed up method. We'll run them as cheap as we can, turn the bulls in mid July, and run. We've done anywhere from 22 to 42 days, but most of the time it's there the 30 days. And if there's any point of time we want to put much into them, it's basically after the bulls come out or as the bulls are in there, and kind of get a little bit of compensatory gain from there. And it's kind of important for us too, just to keep it cheap, because every year the most steady, profitable enterprise on our ranch is those heifers. And it's a lot, because even every year our open heifers are profitable. We'll sell those basically right after we preg them there in the September or October there. So that's kind of how we get them developed. And like I said, the cheaper the better on that. And they get very little care, very little supplement, and they're running big groups. A lot of times, 800 to 1,200 heifers.
Yep. And, that short breeding season, kind of just finding the fertile ones, the best ones that are you're not trying to decide, pick them with the eye. You're going to let the bull pick the ones that are the right ones.
Yep. We say let the bulls decide, and we really don't run that high ratio on bulls either. So, and we don't really have a target. We want to keep them healthy until then, but we're not pushing weights. They're only 650-pound heifers for the most part when we're turning bulls in. And it's kind of just as cheap as we can get them there. And, we'll let the bulls decide which one, and then which ones the good ones are. Yep.
Yeah. And what kind of percentage are you shooting for on that?
Not really. We don't really have a target. It's been from 40% to upper 60s, 70, and it can get into the 70s for sure. But I'll tell you again, Logan's his spreadsheets have kind of told us there's a real correlation between the higher the breed up. If we get up there in the, and we have this before we started doing this, I think Bert came in 17. But those heifers that if we got a good year of breed up on heifers, it kind of shows year two. If we challenge them hard, then they're going to breed up real great. That as a second calver. So there's definite value in that, and luckily we got a lot of data that shows challenging them makes a good fertile critter, which is what we're after. So,
and I think is that what you were saying is that the correlation is between overall ranch profitability and getting that cow bred the second time.
Yeah, but more so just it's simply in breed up, So if we have a high breed up in the yearlings, it's not as good that second year. But if we have a low breed up of yearlings, that breed up's so and it's just consistently, it's consistent. There's a strong correlation for sure. Yeah.
Yeah, and that just comes down to a philosophy and a way of seeing the world, right? Gabe Brown quoting Don Campbell says, if you want to change small things, change the way you do things. If you want to change big things, change the way you see things. And, if you're looking at it as I've got to do everything I can to get every one of these heifers that I can bred, then, that's your target, that's your metric of success. And then they fall out in the second year. That's a big hit. But if you're looking at it as, well, if I run them cheaply enough, when they are open as a yearling, they're still profitable and it doesn't hurt. It's not as big of a deal.
That's right. Exactly right.
Yep. And so I think that's a huge advantage. Okay, so we kind of been on this journey through birth and weaning and breeding, where are they at? Where are they kind of topping out as far as frame score and weight and some of those things once they make it into the herd?
Yeah, so when they're calving as bred heifers, we really don't, we aren't too concerned. I'd guess we have weighed a few years, and they're right around 950 pounds as a heifer, and we want to make sure they're in decent body condition when they calve that first time. And that's pretty important, which is pretty easy to do with our girls. But they're topping out at we don't have too many over that 1,250, 1,300 pound range on our cows, and they're pretty consistent. And like I said, it's nice having that heterosis to to help us there. And we'll pull off dries in August and get them to town, and you'd think they'd weigh a lot more than what they do because they just get real fat. But I even in August when they're butterball fat, they might weigh 14, but that's that's a 7.5 body condition score. So yeah.
Yeah, and hasn't had a calf on her, and
That's right.
Yeah,
they're pretty consistently 1,200 pounds in their working clothes, and we get a lot of I get a lot of comments on neighbors and truckers that they kind of admit to you that hey a lot of it's easy to get sidetracked with growth and frame size that comes from that, and Wineglass has been middle of the road for a lot of years, and yeah, I can't take credit for that. But Jeff's been working on this. He hasn't been distracted from all that stuff. He's kept everything right in the middle of the road, and it's worked. They've been around for a long time here at Wineglass, and we're just keeping the wheels on the bus.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned heterosis. What does that look like there? But I think when we've talked about them before, we've run ads for this sale in past years that's coming up here at the end of March in 2025. We've talked about them being Angus based, right?
We're pretty much just an English, cow herd with we got mostly black hided, but we do add some red Angus and Hereford to get that. I don't know if you'd call it composite, but for sure Heterosis working for us. And with Burke's suggestions, he says maybe even a little more Heterosis to inject in there. And with that, we've added a little bit of in small doses some composite bulls with some Tarentaise and some Fleck Bay and just percentage bulls like that, and try to get a little bit more in there. And I don't I don't know if we'll change a whole lot, but yeah, that's basically and we're shooting for Rocket Face and Baldies, and just keep, like Burke says, keep optimum heterosis, not maximum, and that seems that's working for us. So.
And I'm guessing if you maximize heterosis rather than optimize it, you're going to end up with a cow that needs more inputs to survive. Is that kind of the concern?
That too, and just logistically, we're running these cow herds in good sized groups. From most of them are 400 to 600 critters in a herd, and if we want to maximize that, we could break it up into a couple hundred head groups. But just logistically, we got just a few guys taking care of a lot of cows, and it's a lot easier to do by crossbred bulls and kind of just shooting for optimum, versus making it complicated. That's yeah, simplicity is the key to brilliance, and we're just trying to keep it simple. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah, for sure. And so then let's kind of just talk about a little bit more about the cows from the maturity perspective. Anything else that kind of would stand out or be unique that you guys are doing there on managing cows through their maturity? We've talked about them from the kind of birth through heifer development and breed up. What about mature cows? Anything that stands out to you there?
Right. No, we basically just give them. They basically just have to give them parameters. And again, this is part of our hands off approach to the cow herd. Is, well, number one, we kind of let nature help us decide and lean on them. But also, if we got to put our hands on critters, that's where we cull. But for the the parameters are pretty simple. Those heifers got to breed in a short, basically that first cycle, wean a markable calf in the fall, be bred in the first 45 days at preg check on everything after a first calf heifer. And we kind of, as Burke says, we have a short calving window, but a long breeding window. And we get, everything after the 50 days, we'll take to Oglala in the spring and sell them, and keep, again, keep emphasis on that fertility. Yeah, that's important for us. And I mean, really, again, we kind of just let them fit those parameters, and kind of have a hands-off cow herd, let them decide. So.
Yep. Yeah. And so kind of the parameters are bringing a marketable calf to the sale every year, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I think Bob Howard said that's your ticket to ride. If you bring that calf, you get to go another round.
Yep.
And then other culling criteria, if you're doctoring them, is that kind of what you're talking about when as far as putting the hands on them? Yeah.
Yeah. And most of the time we kind of have what we call a payday herd. So as a yearling, if they're gimpy or whatever, they kind of get treated and kicked into there. So they don't see, but really we're exposing all our heifers, and most of the culling occurs about not weaning a calf, or, at calving, if any prolapse, which is, obviously very few, but pulled calf on heifers, they all go. And even, if we're struggling if we got to help mom raise that calf, she's got to do it all. So if she can't do that, or we got to help, then we'll get rid of her. But yeah, I mean, otherwise we pretty much just let them decide. So yeah.
And is there any kind of a system, 3 strikes you're out, or it's just we're helping, you're gone?
Yeah, well, it's pretty much 1 strike really,
Yeah.
and we take them to town. We're pretty tough on them really. So yeah. So
nope, I think that's good, as it should be.
Now,
Let's take a quick break and hear a word from our sponsor today, the Wineglass Ranch. Well, we've been talking about the Wineglass Ranch with one of the men who is involved in developing this herd of easy-keeping cows, and they will be for sale coming your way March 26th, 2025 at Oglala Livestock. As we've talked about with TJ today, this is an Angus-based genetic herd with Hereford cross as well, and high focus on optimizing heterosis so that these cows are productive but also efficient and able to get by on grass. And even in less than ideal circumstances, they are able to make it work on grass. So huge opportunity here to get your hands on some great foundation type cattle for your herd going forward. And you can find out more about this herd at wineglassranchinc.com, wineglassranchinc.com, and get in line to get your hands on some of these girls coming your way March 26th, 2025. Oglala Livestock, Oglala, Nebraska. Hopefully, we'll see you there.
Let's talk a little bit about bulls, because I think that's another unique piece of this. Honestly, the bull side of the equation, it's at least half, right? But they're also a big part of helping you make feminine females and females that are going to be able to do well on grass. So you can't just take, I'm guessing, you can correct me here, but you don't just take, conventional genetics and throw them out there on these easy keeping cows and expect it to have positive results, right?
That's right. Yep. Yeah. So for the most part, I don't know exactly, but for sure, 3/4 of the herd is home raised bulls. What we like to do is kind of give guidelines to how we keep them. And most of that is, select for, try to have bulls that complement what we're doing on the cows. So fertility, make sure that we're keeping bulls out of cows that calve in that first cycle. And we don't keep data on individual cows, so we'll go out in a mature cow herd and kind of emphasis on making that cow, making sure she wants to be a cow, and a lot of that is just bigger in that calf, and on the cow side, making sure that cow really loves that baby, and really a lot, we're trying to select for a lot with because if that cow can keep that calf by its side and the herd of 800, that's huge. And I didn't notice, or I didn't think about this when I, being raised on a small ranch, you don't really think about that. And those, our cows got an 8,000 acre ranch that they're gonna see every acre of it, and they better keep track of that calf and do all the work herself. And it takes a cow with a lot of mothering ability. Along with that, though, we pretty much just keep a cow with a high relative intake, a big rib cow with good hormonal function and basically a lot of the practical traits, a nice tight bag, basically just a good grass genetic cow, just not too big, not too small, just kind of shooting for that, 1,200 pound cow. And again, back to the, use heterosis where we can. We like picking those baldy bulls, broccoli face bulls, something that we know has, again, that heterosis in there. But yeah, and we really don't. I'll look at some EPDs and stuff, but we're not really selecting on that. We're and same with technical confirmations and this and that. Like if they can bring a calf to the weaning pen and hustle on her own, that's again, we're going to let them decide. So we try to stay out of the way as much as we can.
Right. Yeah. And what are some of your other bull selection criteria? When you're going to have a home raised bull that's going to make it into that bull battery, is there an age of the cow that you kind of shoot for or anything like that?
For sure. She's for sure better breed back. Obviously as a heifer in that first cycle, in that first 45 days, but otherwise we're not too picky. Older the better, and for the most part, but not really. And then going down the line, that bull kind of has to pass that test, you know, at weaning, any bull that looks real steery or to be gutted or just kind of a poor doer, we'll kind of cull them then, and then we'll semen test them in the spring. If they don't pass that test, they'll get. And then at that point, as yearlings, we kind of put a lot of emphasis on masculinity. And again, we run a fairly low ratio, 30-35 bulls to a cow, and that's including the yearlings that have been brought along real slow. So our yearling bulls aren't big, bulls that have been pushed. So that they're not going to be able to cover as many cows as our mature bulls, but we don't take away those yearlings from that ratio. Those, and we're not too scared to run those old mature bulls either. They can cover a lot of cows. So, but yeah, they kind of just. It's just kind of a continuous cooling on those bulls, and the good ones that are fertile and pass the semen test and are masculine, well, they get to stick around, So,
Yep. And do you have a sense of kind of what percentage that ends up being?
in terms of what we start with, or
Yeah.
probably half of them from the time we tag to the time they're, done with their first breeding season, probably half, roughly. Basically 15 bulls a year out of what we start with from 2,200 cows, or 1,100 of them.
1,100 of them are bulls, and out of 1,100, 15 will end up making it into the bull battery. Is that what you're saying?
That's pretty average. So,
Wow. Yeah, that's a very low percentage. I mean,
right.
for seed stock operators in general, I think their percentage of what ends up on a bull sale is going to be quite a bit higher than that, right?
Sure, for sure. Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's interesting. Now, I'm not sure if this came up in bonus content or if it was part of a main episode with Logan, but I think we did talk about that bull battery and the fact that maybe they don't look exactly like every other bull battery that you might drive by on a on a conventional operation. Could you tell me a little bit about what they end up looking like?
Yeah, that's for sure. And there's like I said, we'll have a little bit of all of our breeds in there anywhere. They'll be straight black, and mostly on our first calf heifers. For the most part, they're pretty much just black Angus for the most part, some red Angus and stuff like that. Um, but yeah, and again back to the optimum heterosis, we'll try to kind of piece everything together so we can optimize that. So we have a couple guys up in the sand hills that take in our cows, so we'll try to send them a group of mostly sort off the black cows and send some Hereford or more Hereford. Very few of our bulls are going to be Hereford, but send those that way and vice versa if we need to. But yeah, I mean, it's not exactly a uniform bull herd for sure, but yeah, again, we're just trying to optimize, not maximize.
Do you think, have you been able to track over time where you can see that more generations of managing cattle this way leads to a more fertile herd? Can you say that?
Yeah, it's always been pretty fertile. I mean, Jeff kind of fine-tuned things back with, Stan Parsons and Ranch for Profit, and he was I think he was on the very first board of Executive Links. So, and this was, I think, in the late 80s, he started kind of cross-fencing and everything. And his philosophy is real similar to mine and real similar to Burke's. It's been pretty much middle of the road, and then and I think at that point he was calving in June. And I think I'm assuming a lot of that was, based with Dick Diven and a lot of his research there at UNL. But then it's kind of been, again, middle of the road cow herd, just staying away from extremes. But when Burke came in here, we did kind of, fine tune that and put a lot more emphasis beforehand, wanting heifers to breed and kind of didn't really understand why not more of them were and was almost frustrated. But Burke said, no, let's just shorten that calving window on those heifers. And I think that is definitely, and again, we got data to kind of prove that seems like it, has improved you know, the herd fertility quite a bit. So yeah, we got data, backing up, especially from when Burke came. But yeah, but it's always been pretty good. So
Sure.
yeah.
And let's talk a little bit about the management there, and kind of the regime of management that these cows are coming out of there at Wineglass Ranch, and even down to stockmanship and some of those things. I heard some stuff earlier that you were saying that sounded like there was some influence from Tom Knopfsinger and others as far as having that cow keep that calf with her and the
Yeah,
benefits of that and some of those things. So let's just talk a little bit about management. We can start with the grazing side of the management there and what you guys are doing.
sure. Yeah, big picture view. Yeah, and and I should have probably started with this in terms of the context. Wineglass, we're grass based. We don't own a feed truck. You know, um, we don't have we don't have harvest equipment on our farm ground. It's all custom, or we do it with cattle. Um, so we kind of let the cows be the combine in a lot of in a lot of aspects. And we one bale bed. We do a little bit of supplement alfalfa, and kind of right before calving, and we'll run some cake for supplement kind of ahead of snowstorms and stuff in the winter. Otherwise, the cows are roughing it. It's definitely a grass-based low input operation. And again, that's mostly back to, you know, uh, Sam Parsons kind of imprint. But in terms of, kind of how they're managed, I'm just kind of taking it through everything. They're kind of on weekly moves on grass for 7 to 8 months of the year, and in big groups. And there's, again, we kind of just let the cow be a cow. And then we'll get those cows weaned and run them in the winter. We'll have like this year we got 10 groups roughly of three to 400 head, and they pretty much don't get a whole lot of supplement, like I said, just ahead of storms, and otherwise they're grazing 365. And we've pushed it. 2022 was a dry summer and a brutal winter, especially locally. And there's maybe just a 5 mile radius there where we got some ice, and I had to go load up Jeff and make sure we weren't gonna, head for a train wreck. And surprisingly, we just helped them with cake, and they kind of got through it. And it was a pretty rough winter, just being covered up and foot of snow, and a lot of that, was ice. And most of the cows in the county, they, kind of got, either on a ration or taken back home, and we're about the only ones out feeding. And it wasn't, it was, I was a little nervous for a while, but, it was surprising what those cows can do. That's kind of, we really be leaning on, believe in letting those cows be a cow. And, with a little supplement, they could rough it. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'd like to talk a little bit about stockmanship because I'm sure my observation skills and totally anecdotal, but I'm sure that I've been to some ranches on the days when the calves get worked, fall shots, and then those heifers become replacement heifers, and then you see them come through the herd, and maybe that day the fall shots were given, the stockmanship wasn't quite on point and things were kind of high stress and rammed and jammed. And now you see those cows in the herd and they're kind of flighty, head up, maybe not as
Yeah.
quiet as the rest of the herd is on average. And I don't know that those two events are connected, but I have a hunch that they are. And
Yeah.
so I think that maybe just giving a little bit of perspective of the philosophy of stockmanship there at Wineglass Ranch might help people understand what to expect if they buy some of these easy keepers.
Sure. Sure. Yeah. Yeah. And like I said, that's pretty much what we do. We take care of cows here. So it's, it's pretty imperative. But yeah, for the most part, it's the critical days are obviously moving paddock shifts, and like you said, when it's time to work, man, we don't do any tagging at birth or nothing like that. So we for the most part, we're calving in little smaller groups, and then yeah, we're pretty much on our own, all year. But when we go to get them in the corrals, we're pretty diligent on there'll be a two, three of us on four wheelers, and we're pretty diligent on what we're doing to get them in the corrals and make sure everything's kind of low stress and a lot of good things are happening along with getting them in and stressing them a little bit, just giving them shots and stuff like that. But that's kind of part of it too. When me and Braden take care of most of the critters out on pasture, and that's pretty much we're all by ourselves for most of the time, and we want it's pretty critical. We want good things to happen 99% of the time, and those they're pretty easy to work with. They put a lot of emphasis on stockmanship and keeping the herd content, and a lot of times it's pretty easy. They're easy keeping cow herds. Really, yes, kind of all the crew, from top to bottom. It's we're pretty proud of our cow herd, and everyone here is. So it's and I definitely know it. Not all places are like that, and so it's kind of, we all kind of believe that the cow herd really is going to help us be good stockmen just by how they're raised and everything. And again, if there's any ornery ones and everything like that, they get cold as well. But really, it's a pretty low percentage because they're pretty easy to work with. So,
Sure. Yeah. What's your favorite part of the cow herd?
Boy,
What's your favorite trait or characteristic or?
Probably probably just the, how, hands off and fertile they are, really. We're all kind of proud, but, especially me as cow boss, uh, it's a fun, herd to, manage. And, along with that, I was a fan of Burke Tiker before I even thought about coming to work for Wineglass, and it's been pretty good marriage there. And yeah, we pretty much agree with most of what he says, and we've all kind of been to know Burke and been to a lot of his stuff, so we're kind of all on the same page. But yeah, definitely the fertility, and just that they just do it on their own. We just let cow be a cow, and they work for us. So it's fun to run these type of cows for sure. So
Sure. Yeah. Any other major nuggets you think we need to cover as far as the cow herd and the ones that'll be there for sale there in Oglala in March?
I don't think so, Clay. I think yeah, I mean, I don't think so. I think that's the gist of it. We just want to have a hands-off cow herd, because when you're two guys for the most part are handling all these cows, it makes things way easier versus a hard doing herd that's wild. And again, along with all the moves, these cow herds are used to moving all the time. That alone makes things easy for us. Just having adapted cows and being used to more intensive grazing management, that there's a real value there for sure. So
Sure. Sounds good. Yeah. Well, show notes page for today, there'll be links to the wineglassranchinc.com there, as well as should be a link by then to the actual sale catalog, I would imagine, or at least a date on the calendar there at Oglala Livestock, where you can go and find out how to get registered to bid and maybe make some of these kind of the foundation of your herd.
Yep, and I think Logan should have everything updated on Facebook page and our website, and and everything else. So we'll have about 1,200 of them available, and yeah, they'll be like I said, they'll be the heart of the herd, and we're not keeping the good ones home. They're all the good ones are leaving, so we'll just keep the calves and the bred heifers and the 3-year-olds. So yep.
Very good. Well, TJ, thanks for your time today.
Appreciate it, Clay.
Very good stuff there with TJ. Really appreciate the perspective, the influence of Burke Teichert, and just how they go about thinking about that, keeping those cattle working, and all that it takes to keep from getting pulled into the industry fads and some of those things that are not maybe serving profitability and some of those things. So really appreciate his perspective on all those things. Very excited to share with you next week on the Working Cows podcast, conversation with Ryan and Kelsey Keeling. Kelsey has recently jumped into running a sheep podcast, and she is, they're from this regenerative perspective, and they're all about running sheep in a way that helps them to profit from it as a business. And so get the opportunity to talk to Ryan and Kelsey next week about their sheep operation, but also Kelsey's new sheep podcast, Feed the Sheep. Feed the Sheep podcast is Kelsey Keeling's new podcast. I'm really excited to share with you the conversation that I had with her about her new podcast, her and Ryan, her husband, about her new podcast. So look forward to seeing you real soon with another episode of the Working Cows podcast.
We invite you to visit workingcows.net to subscribe to the show via iTunes or Stitcher. You'll also find detailed show notes pages, resources from our guests, and the industry leaders who have influenced them. For more ideas on putting your cows to work for you in a more profitable way, tune in next week.